Money is a game.
Welcome to the Service to Syndication podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlow. I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, and capital raisers in the world, where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, and skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me Mr. Gino Barbaro, top-notch multifamily syndicator. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some type of value out of this interview, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who shared this episode, I want to say thank you. I know you're going to get some value out of this interview, so like, subscribe, and leave a comment so you can be notified of future episodes. Again, everyone, I have with me Mr. Gino Barbaro. He is an investor, business owner, educator, entrepreneur, and podcast host on his 3 shows. As an entrepreneur, he has grown his real estate portfolio to over 2,200 multifamily units, transacted $350 million in assets under management. He is the best-selling author of 2 books, Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy, and Baby Money Soldiers. His mission is to empower families to build lasting legacies by focused on restoring traditional values in family, life, finance, and wellness. He resides with his beautiful wife, Julia, and their 6 kids in St. Augustine, Florida. All right, Gino, welcome to the show. The first thing that I like to do with my guests is kind of wrap up your real estate career in 75 seconds or less, and then we'll just start to unravel all of that.
Wow. Cedric, thank you for having me on. That was an awesome introduction, brother. And you've got the voice for this. For me, it was real easy. I grew up in an immigrant household. Both parents were savers. Dad owned a restaurant. I got into the restaurant business. 2007 comes along. Dad passes away. Am I living his dream? Am I living my dream? I got 4 kids at the time. I ain't making enough money, working harder, making less. I met my business partner, Jake Senziano, at the restaurant. He was the pharmaceutical rep, taking food out of the restaurant, delivering it to doctors' offices to try to sell his vaccines. Hence, the pizza guy and the drug rep got together. We started investing in 2011 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Listen, it took us 18 months to find that first deal. In 2013, we closed on our first little 25-unit property. We affectionately called it the Little Crack Den because it wasn't the best-looking property in the best-looking neighborhood, but it was okay. It was still our first deal. Within 5 years, we had 500 units. Within, 7 years, we were over 1,000 units. And, we can talk about that progression and all, but as you're listening to this and as you're listening to the podcast, the multifamily space, real estate is phenomenal. It's one of the best vehicles out there. And if you're listening to this, I want you to really reflect upon why real estate. And I want you to just to dispel the fact that Cedric's doing it, Gino's doing it. Anybody can do this business if you understand that it, number one, is a business, and number two, that if you just learn the skills of how to invest in multifamily.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Gino, you scaled to over 1,500 units in less than 5 years or so. What were the key decisions or actions that allowed you to grow so quickly?
That's a great question. I would say that I have two parts to my investing journey. I had life before Jake, which was pretty much a crap show. I mean, I learned a lot. And then I ultimately have to say to myself, I have to humble myself. There's two places to learn. You either learn on the street or you learn in the classroom. I was learning on the street. I was getting my butt kicked. I finally said, time out. This mentorship thing, I signed up for a couple of mentorship programs back in 2008, and they were life-changing for me. And what I think the quote that says luck is, the integration of hard work and just being there at the right time and putting in the effort. Luck shined upon me when I met Jake in 2009. I was ready. I had the knowledge. Jake knew nothing about multifamily, but he really wanted to get into the business. So for us, it was a great partnership getting there into 2011. We created the framework: buy right, manage right, and finance right. That is what our framework's all about: buying the asset, financing it, and then managing it, what we call the wheelbarrow profits. It's in the shape of a wheelbarrow. The two back legs are fixed, the buy and the finance, and the manage is in motion. I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more probably, but that was for us, right? I had no map. I had no process before I met Jake. As we started investing, there was the process. And the thing that allowed us to scale, and as you're listening to this, I'm sure a lot of your listeners can really resonate with this. Jake and I were the IMA guys when we started out. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. IMA ultimately gets burned out. IMA works for, the first 20, 30, 50, 100 units. After that, you can't cut the grass. You can't pay the bills. You can't show property tours. You can't collect the rents. You need to start hiring. And that's hard for entrepreneurs. See, I think people get into business because they're technicians who love what they're doing, but they don't have the ability to say to themselves, I need to scale. Growth is just adding revenue, adding resources. Scaling, I think, is looking at a company and saying, how do I put systems in place without having to add revenue, but adding systems and processes to be able to scale? And that's what Jake and I realized. And we also realized that we weren't born with that skill to build and to scale a business. We had to go out and find the Gino Wickmans of the world with traction and the Vern Harnishes of the world with scaling up. And was it painful? Was it expensive? Absolutely. But that expense, I looked at it at that point as an investment into our future, into being able to scale the operations, not only just from the number of units, but being able to figure out what we're trying to accomplish with the business. Because multifamily, and Cedric, I'll say this last thing before I throw it back to you. I think if you're listening to this, real estate is beautiful because it is a business. It's not just a piece of property there. If you look at it as a little cash flowing machine, that is a business and that's going to generate profits. You're buying a future stream of revenue. You may be buying a duplex or you may be buying a 700 unit property. The principles are the same. If you learn how to implement systems and you look at it as a business, the sky is the limit for you.
So true. I like how that mindset shift of not looking at it as an expense, but more so as an investment. And so since we're along that line, what mindset shifts did you have to make when transitioning from small properties to the larger multifamily deals?
Wow. That is a hard question for me to answer because it's changed over the years. Right now, I would have to say it's my relationship with money. I'm looking right now to become a certified money coach because I can teach Cedric to buy a property. It's not hard to buy a property. To me, it's 20%, mechanical. Cap rates, cash on cash. To me, the other 80% is the psychological aspect of it. And for me, my tribe, I was the pizza guy. I had that community, those types of people. Who is Gino to think that he can go out and buy a 50-unit property? That was my identity. Once again, my identity was the pizza guy. And when I realized that's a load of crap, I want to strive. I want to do better. God put me on this planet not to hide in the kitchen washing dishes. I had more opportunity than that. And if you're listening to this and you're in this country, you do too. I understood that there was responsibility involved. I was the victim back in '08. I was blaming Obama. I was blaming Bush. I was blaming the Great Recession. But there's a lot of people out there back then that were making a ton of money, and I wasn't one of them. And when I realized that if you become responsible for all your actions, then you can create solutions. And then all of a sudden, there's opportunities. Those problems come about, but there's opportunities. We're all dealt certain cards. It's how we play those cards that ends up showing the benefits, whatever happens to our life. Some of us play differently than others. And I started playing my cards differently. I started looking at it as not a zero-sum game. This real estate thing is great. Partnering up is great. I hated partners before, Jake. I just had to change my mindset. And for me, it came down to values-based decision-making. Every decision that I needed to make was based upon my values. Now, if you don't want to get into bigger properties, that's fine. But don't kid yourself. What's holding you back from even exploring the idea? Are you worthy? Do you think you're worthy enough? Do you think you can do it? I'm here to tell you it's not rocket science. If a pizza guy and a drug rep can do it, anybody can do it. And I want you to explore your relationship with money. What did you hear when you were younger? What didn't you hear? Is money the root of all evil? Does money grow on trees or not grow on trees? If you start adhering and listening to that type of word, I'm not discounting it. You may believe that. That's fine. But if you do believe that, you're not going to go out and look at 50 and 60 and 100 unit properties. You're not going to pick up the phone and call brokers. You're not going to start syndicating deals and talk to investors because you don't feel as if you're worthy enough. I'm here to tell you you are. Just plan on what you want this multifamily business to do for your life. And once you become clear on that, the motivation will come back. We don't lack the motivation. We lack the clarity. And once we become clear on our relationship with money, we can couple that with our values and we have a clear plan, thinking of what the end in mind is and bringing that back. Why aren't you worthy enough? Why can't you go out and take down a 100-unit property?
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned about wanting to get your certification to become a money manager. I literally just interviewed earlier this morning, actually, a wealth manager from out of Dallas, where he takes athletes and entertainers and he has to break it down how money works to get that money to, of course, have babies, you know, and not only that, but to be responsible with your spending at the same time. Those were like some of the gems that came out of that. And I believe a lot of us really need to learn that along the way.
Cedric, that's important. It's because financial planning, it's not rocket science. It's basic math. But why aren't people doing that? To me, with the money coaching aspect of it, what you're doing in money coaching is you're going back into the past. You're looking at all of the money traumas that you've experienced. Yes, money traumas, as well as other traumas. And you're diagnosing, you're doing a bio of your entire life and you're bringing it to the present. So for me, for example, I'm a 5-year-old little boy with my Italian grandmother going to the grocery store. I say, Grandma, in Italian, can we buy some toy soldiers? That's why, hence, we created Baby Money Soldiers. She's like, Gino, I'm sorry, we don't have money. We didn't have credit cards back then. When Mom comes home, guess what? We're going to come back. I remember leaving that store crying, thinking I'm never going to get these soldiers. That was a scar. A 5-year-old little boy not knowing if he can afford to get that. Am I going to get that? And then at 8 years old, I'm going to work with my dad at the restaurant, comes home and gives me $2 in front of the whole family. And everyone's like, hey, cheering on and this. And that imprinted on me a life of hard work, dedication, making money in a business. All of a sudden, that was another pattern that I created. So you see throughout your life, as you're listening to this, what are your patterns with money? If the pattern is always being avoided money, nobody talks about it in the house. If the pattern is rich people and billionaires are evil, well, guess what? As you get older, you're going to be looking at money in a different light. And once I started working on myself and I started looking at that, and I'm like, wow, that's why a person who's 30 years old, who has very little success, all of a sudden decides to close an 100-unit, whereas a person who's 44, who's got a 7-figure net worth, who's got a big balance sheet, is saying, I can't pull the trigger. What's the difference? The difference is they've explored their relationship with money and they've realized the patterns that are disempowering to them all of a sudden explore those and try to work those out. And once you understand that, it's like, wow, it's like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders, understanding those patterns and saying to myself, how do I become empowering? What patterns do I want? So as you're listening to this, think about what your money bio is. Think about what money traumas you've gone through. And Cedric, I'm going to tell you, it's a difficult exercise, but it's more difficult if you don't do it, because you need to have answers for your life, and you need to have answers of, why do I keep doing this? Another pattern that I have, Cedric, real quick before I want to give it back to you, is Jake and I love to do deals. We're deal junkies. Who isn't a deal junkie in real estate? But what kind of pattern is that? Is that a dopamine pattern? Is that Gino going, oh, I got to do it? But now I've realized that pattern, and I use buy right, manage right, and finance right. So when I get edgy, I'll do my polyvagal breathing. I'll breathe, I'll calm myself down, and I'll understand, hey, it's okay if you have to pass in this deal. No deal is better than a bad deal. And if I didn't understand that pattern, I was going to continue to do deal after deal and do bad deals. That was my mantra before Jake. Once I understood and started doing this work, and I said, hey, that pattern is not empowering. That's a disempowering pattern. You can take that pattern into any part of your life. If you're gambling money, if you're overeating, whatever that looks like, it really comes down to the psychology and what's going on in the brain. And once you realize that, nobody's talking about it in regards to money, but that is really powerful when we're trying to utilize money and trying to have whatever relationship we have with money, understanding what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, Gino, earlier you mentioned that anyone can do this. So for someone looking to invest in multifamily today, what are three top things they need to understand before getting started?
Thank you for the question. That is an excellent question. The first thing you need to understand is, what are you trying to accomplish? And it's different for everybody. If you're a doctor making 7 figures, you're probably not going to want to get into the business full time. You may have some retirement money. Hey, Cedric's doing syndications. You want to invest passively? Great, invest passively. If you're a young person saying, I want to continue and I want to get into the business, there's a different mindset. That's a different set of skills that you're going to need to learn. And if you're someone like Gino, who's got a full-time job but wants to get into the business, that's what I wanted. I wanted to start creating some passive income on the side while I'm doing my restaurant. And then within 5 years, I was making more money with the real estate than I was with the restaurant. Although I didn't leave the restaurant, because I stayed there for 5 years, because all the money that I made in real estate, I put it back into the real estate business. The restaurant allowed me to pay my lifestyle. And within 5 years, I had enough. So the first thing you need to do is understand what your goals are. Very important. What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to just start creating wealth? Do you want to start getting some cash flow? Do you want to look at this as a retirement vehicle? Do you want to build a business? What does that look like? I think the second part, bar none, AI, all YouTube, everything is great. You need to find a community out there that's teaching you how to invest. And it's not for the education, it's for the accountability. I had my accountability partner. His name was Jake Stenziano. Then we created the Jake and Gino community, which is now called the Wheelbarrow Profits community. And we've taught hundreds of people how to buy a deal. It's not only what we're teaching, but what that community allows people to do. All of a sudden, they're accountable. They've left their tribe of nurses and small business owners and pizza guys and salespeople, and they've joined another tribe. And this tribe here in multifamily is going to focus not on drama and on stupid discussions. We're going to focus on mindset. We're going to focus on creating wealth. We're going to focus on buy right, manage right, finance right. We're going to focus on holding ourselves accountable to buying our first deal or our next deal. That's the next thing that you need to do. You have to invest in it. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal growth and personal development. And I think the last thing nowadays is it's so accessible. Go out, and if you've never done therapy may be a great answer. Life coaching, I love personal development and life coaching. You need to work on yourself. I think Jim Rohn said it. Hey, a job pays the bills, work on yourself creates the fortune and creates the wealth. People need to work on themselves. You know, the person that Jake and Gino were back in 2011, if we didn't work on ourselves, we wouldn't be able to go from a small 25-unit property to over 2,000 units. That personal development, personal growth is so important. If you can combine those 3 elements, man, you've put gas on that fire. And finally, from a mechanical standpoint, if you start put all that together and like, yeah, I want to get into multifamily, then you really need to focus on selecting a market, focus on becoming an expert in the market, broker relationships, learn how to speak to brokers, and then the underwriting portion of that. Those elements right there. Once you've got the first part, then the next part is pretty easy to start wrapping your mind around.
Okay. Okay. Now, what criteria do you use to evaluate a multifamily property? And has that evolved over the years as your portfolio has grown?
Cedric, I love your questions, brother. You understand real estate at the level because
Absolutely.
I started in 2011. What was I buying in 2011? Little crack den properties, paying 25 a door with $250 to $300 in rents. Why do we buy those deals? Because they were cheap, they are high cap rates, and that's where we are in that part of the market cycle. We have something called the three pillars of real estate, which is market cycle, debt, and exit strategy. Now, when you're looking at your buy rate criteria, unfortunately, it's going to change as the market cycle changes. So you're looking from 2011 to 2017 or 18, you're buying older assets because you're getting them at much better cap rates. Cap rates are compressing and you can flip these assets and or refi. We haven't sold that many deals. We've refinanced a lot of our assets and held them. So at that point, we were buying older assets. As 2020 comes along and cap rates are really starting to compress, you're buying a 4 cap in Dallas. That becomes a foreclosure, basically. You got negative leverage. You got a 4 cap and interest rates are 6%. That's really hard. Unless you're buying on yield on cost where you can get that to a 7 or 8 cap, it's really hard to make money. As the market cycles tends to start changing, what we've done over the last 2 to 3 years, we've gone to newer vintages. If you could buy a B property at a 5 cap, you're buying a C property at a 5.5 or 6. I'd rather buy the B property. There's less work, there's less risk. To me, there's more upside because as far as the CapEx requirements, there's less. So in this part of the market cycle, what you need to do if you're a multifamily investor or any investor in any market, and even if you're buying a business, what's your buy rate criteria? And it changes from market to market because if you're looking for assets in North Carolina built in the mid 90s, well, what happened in the mid 90s? There was something called NAFTA. All the jobs left. There was no multifamily being built back then. So you need to understand your market. So for us in our market of East Tennessee, we're looking for assets built 1980s and newer, right? Not to say that if a 1962 asset comes on our desk, we're going to look at it, but with more scrutiny. We're not paying a 7 cap for a 1960s asset in this part of the market cycle. We're going to pay a much higher cap rate, a little bit newer asset. We like 2-bed, 1.5-bath townhomes. It feels more like a home, right, than just a regular garden. Once again, we're saying we're not looking at gardens, but we like townhomes. If they've got garages, even better. Median incomes of at least $50,000, we like that base because renters can pay 3 times their rent. So if you're looking at $5,000 a month, $4,000 a month, they can pay at least $1,200 for rents. We like that. Washer, dryer hookups. What type of amenities are in the units? We like the washer, dryer hookups. Trying to think of anything else. We love brick. We love pitched roofs. See, getting crystal clear is also good because when you talk to a broker, you can tell the broker he's looking between 20 and 200 units, median income in the 50,000 plus, 2-bed, 1.5-bath townhomes. We like that. If they got garages, great. We like breezeways that have vinyl. You see how clear I'm getting? Then all of a sudden, the broker knows that I'm serious. The broker knows what I'm talking about. And hence, when that broker sees the deal, they're like, wow, this is a Gino deal. I'm going to give Gino a call. So getting crystal clear on your buy rate criteria is important. But you need to understand what market you're working in. And you need to understand where you are in the market cycle to be able to, I guess, constantly change. Because in 2 years from now, all of a sudden, C properties may have taken a massive hit on pricing and they become a bargain or they become, the asset to buy in that part of the market cycle. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay. Yeah. So now let me ask you this, Jim. How do you approach financing and capital raising for large multifamily deals? And can you share an example from your own journey? And can you give that answer like from also from the GP side as well as the LP perspective? But what that psychology is from the LP perspective, what you're trying to hear, what you're trying to listen to from someone who's trying to pitch you that opportunity.
Gonna like this episode, so please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when the next episode drops.
We've done 3 syndications, Cedric. We've actually exited the syndication space. We just figured we have our own capital. Okay. We're able to buy our own deals. So we're doing between 25 and $30 million in deals with me, Jake, and my business partner, Mike. Syndication is an amazing tool. At one point in 2017, we ran out of money. We didn't know we didn't have any more money. So let's start syndicating. Now we've raised probably a little over $10 million for our 3 syndications. But the Jake and Gino community, the Wheelbarrow Profits community, has raised almost $1 billion. They've raised a ton of money. Community is all important. Media is all important. Getting your name out there is all important. Branding is all important. But what people need to understand is people are going to invest with someone that I don't want to use the word trust, but that they know, and somebody who's competent. So our students use the framework. When they're pitching a deal, they use the framework of the buy right, the manage right, and the finance right. So they're going to start and create a webinar based on why they buy in this asset. How are they financing this asset? And what does management look like? That's what you should be doing as the general partner. Let's focus on that. And let's keep it, I don't want to say, low level, but let's make it as if it's an 8-year-old. Go to ChatGPT, type in, help me out by creating a deck or a pitch of my multifamily deal as if I'm speaking to an 8-year-old. It's amazing what it'll spit out because you don't want to overwhelm it, right? We have 3 parts to our brain. We have the instinctive brain, then we have the emotional brain, and then we have that more of the thinking brain, the frontal lobe. Well, the first part you're pitching to is the instinctive brain. If you're starting to talk about cap rates and cash on cash and IRR to a doctor who's never heard that before, they're going to be like, what are you selling me? But if you're going to say to them, hey, you've got money in a self-directed IRA. You can get some great tax benefits. And by the way, it's a basic human need, food, clothing, and apartments. And you know that Trump guy with these tariffs, you're on a roller coaster ride with the stock market up one day, down the next. Do you want control? Do you want something that's going to be here? You want something that's a basic human need? That's how I would start off the pitch with that kind of person. Now, if you're speaking to an engineer type brain, they want more logic. They want more numbers. So knowing who you're speaking to is important. The second part of raising capital and speaking to somebody is get to know them. What's in it for them, not what's in it for you. Everyone does. I don't want to say everyone, but the vast majority of people are coming with the pitch. I want to first know if Cedric is even able to invest in my deal. I want to know if Cedric knows about multifamily. I want to know if this is Cedric's last dollar in the deal. I don't want to take his money because this deal is at risk. So I want to know his story. I want to understand that if it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, it's okay. I'm going to ask Cedric, does Cedric have somebody that he can recommend to me? I think that's important. Now, if you're a limited partner, we have that 3-step framework of, I love to use analogies. Think of number 1, the sponsor. The sponsor is what we call the jockey, right? Number 2 is the alignment of interests. Think of the saddle. And number 3 is the deal, which is the horse. So if you're looking at all 3 of those, what do most LPs do? They think of, I need a deal, I need a deal, I need a deal. That's the last part you should be worrying about. The first part you should be worrying about is the sponsor or the jockey, the person that's going to be, the head of the deal. Is that sponsor of credibility? Do they have integrity? Have they done a couple of full cycle deals? Do they communicate well? Do you like that sponsor, right? All of those things, you have to qualify the sponsor. And if you're the GP, you need to show this to your LP. Now, the second part, that saddle that the sponsor's sitting on, we need to have our interests aligned. The LP needs to say to themselves, well, this sponsor is going to keep my money for the next 5 to 7 years. Does that align with what I'm trying to do? This sponsor is charging X amount of fees. Are those too high? I can't say yes or no, but you need to have your interests aligned with the sponsors. And the sponsor has to look at it from that perspective as well. Are our interests aligned? Is this investor going to drive me nuts? He's got 50 grand in this deal. Am I going to get phone calls every week from this investor? You may not be a good fit. And the third part is the horse. It's the buy right, the manage right, and the finance right. Now, if you can look at it from that lens as a limited partner, the sponsor first, and then our interests aligning, and then, oh, wow, they do. Now show me the deal. The deal is the least important. And if you look at it from that perspective, you're going to limit your downside risk. And if you can take care of the downside risk, as Mr. Trump says, I read The Art of the Deal today for some reason, the upside will take care of itself.
Yeah. I do like that because, we've all heard, people will invest with people they know, like, and trust. And I do agree with you. Now it's know and like. Trust, we have to work on the trust part,
Yes.
Let me get in this deal. Let me see how the deal goes. And maybe let's exit the deal. Okay. And then maybe I'll start to trust, your advice and, your deal and the way you handle business as well and the way that you operate. So yeah, I do like that you mentioned that because like I said, everybody know it's the know, like, and trust triangle. So
Cedric, I'll give a quick tip on what you can do to avoid that situation. In 2005, I was at the restaurant. A gentleman pulls into my parking lot. He's driving a gold Maserati. I called him Maserati Mike. I ended up investing in his mobile home parks, and he had been doing deals for like 6 or 7 years. He came recommended from a really good friend of mine, who still is a really good friend of mine. But I ended up doing the deal. 18 months later, I lost $172,000. Gone. Now, once again, the responsibility. I held it for a few months, but then once I started doing the personal growth, yeah, it was his fault, Mike's fault. He was a moron. He was negligent. He was probably a little bit of a fraudster. But if I had applied that framework, I would not have invested with him. But more importantly, if you don't trust somebody, Gino could have gotten his ass on a plane, flown down to Florida, looked at the properties and understood what cap rates were and understood that I was actually investing in a syndication. He was creating a security. I didn't even know what that meant, right? So a lot of that fell upon me. Get on a plane, walk your syndication companies' properties, talk to their property management company. You can learn a lot from just going around. If you can, also maybe possibly take a tour of the property that they're buying. And if they're saying, no, we can't show you, ask to speak to a couple of their investors. If they say, no, we really can't do that, then guess what? Your money is hard earned. If you can't spend $1,000 on an airplane ticket, but you're willing to spend 50 grand on putting money into an investment, there's something skewed with that situation. And you know what? I've been there, so I can't criticize you, but I didn't even know what I didn't know. So get on a plane, right? It's not even that difficult nowadays like it used to be. Use chat. There's so many ways to find out information. And I think that's the important thing. If I had done that, it would have saved me the pain. But I don't know. I think that pain was really good because I ultimately realized that I needed a lot of help. I didn't know the business at all. I was actually a failure on every aspect, mindset, the business aspect. And, the famous quote, a person with money meets a person with experience. The person with that experience got my money, and the person with the money got the experience. And that's not a good feeling. That's what I'm trying to help people avoid. It's not a fun feeling.
22,000 out.
Yes.
Ouch.
Never forget that.
But you did get the experience. That is so true in what
Yes.
you just said.
Yes.
Yeah. So Gino, what role has you just mentioned your team. What role has your team played in scaling your business, and what advice do you have for building a team?
That's such a good question. 3 foundational factors that Jake and I like to talk about. It's people, systems, and culture. The old Gino had one restaurant for 20 years. Why was that? Gino had no core values. Gino had no mission statement. And that may sound silly, but when I'm hiring somebody at the restaurant and I'm firing somebody and I have no mission statement, no vision, it's always their fault. It's never my fault. But when we're at 500 units and we need to grow, all of a sudden we need to have a mission statement, right? We need to have our core values of people first, extreme ownership, make it happen, growth mindset, unwavering ethics. Those are our core values. We hire and we fire based on those core values. Whether it's an employee, whether it's an investor, right? We want to align our communities, whatever we're doing, right? Whether it's a vendor, we're hiring somebody to cut the grass. I don't want to hear the landscaper say, hey, I couldn't make it out there today. No, that's not make it happen. You're not going to make it out today. You're going to continue to make excuses. I think we need to part ways. Getting really clear on that is so important. The people aspect of it, man, if you don't work on your people, you will not be able to scale. I mean, I'd rather get 80% from somebody than 100% of doing it myself. That's what I think you need to understand. And one of the hardest aspects in business, at least in my understanding or my perspective, is knowing when to fire somebody. I think I've done this often where I've just held on because I know the short-term pain is going to be great. But I'm here to tell you that long-term gain is so wonderful. Once you just cut the cord and you're able to suck it up for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden you hire somebody who is actually a better fit for the role, and things start to work out, you always come back and say to yourself, why didn't I do it sooner? And nowadays, y'all have the luxury of virtual assistants, of AI. Jake and Gino didn't have that years ago. We had to do it ourselves. Things were costlier. One of the things that Jake gave up early on is he's probably the world's worst bookkeeper. He stopped bookkeeping. And then he stopped editing the podcasts. So there's so many functions that you shouldn't be doing. If they don't bring joy to you, I mean, if you love editing, if you love bookkeeping, I'm not telling you to get rid of it, but if they're not really generating revenue for your business, I mean, when you're in real estate, there's two things you should be doing. You should be always sourcing for deals, and you should always be sourcing for capital. Those are the two most important things, at least in my perspective. If all of your functions are focused around that, guess what? You're going to get more deals and you're going to get more capital. Now, if you're out there editing a podcast because you like it, you're hiding. Are you hiding in the kitchen? You know, when you're in the restaurant, where should you be in the restaurant? You should be in the front, greeting the customers, putting in systems, not washing dishes. And that's why I couldn't scale. That's why I couldn't grow. So understanding that, I think, will really help somebody, scale a business.
Yeah. I think it's Dan Sullivan, Who Not How.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it right there in a nutshell.
Yes. Yeah. That was great. That was Dr. Benjamin Hardy. We interviewed Dr. Benjamin Hardy on the Jake and Gino podcast. He's got some phenomenal books, and he's co-authored them with Dan Sullivan. And that's a hard book when you're starting out, when you're in the grind, because the ego says, I can do it all.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes the ego is the killer of a lot of things, and just say, hey, I can do it all, but should I do it all?
So true. Yep. So your mission is to empower families and to build legacies. How does multifamily investing fit into that vision?
It's, to me, one of the greatest vehicles to create wealth. I mean, I don't have to expand to you or expound to you all of the benefits, whether it's cash flow, whether it's principal pay down, the tax benefits are there. It cash flows every month for us. For us, multifamily is a great vehicle because last time I checked, you can't buy it on the internet yet. It's one of those things where it's a basic human need, right? And for us, if you're really in it and you really do a great job and you do a great job for your investors, for your employees, well, guess what? The residents really get a leg up as well. The communities within that you're trying to serve are really well. So you're focusing on building the people in your organization. And if you can focus on the people, great. But if you can focus on the residents and give them a great experience, your people are going to be a lot happier. And then ultimately NOI increases in that third leg, whether it's you guys that are great, the owner draws, or your investors, they're going to be happy. That's what I love about multifamily and real estate in general, if you look at it from that lens. And I think for us, the legacy aspect is buying these assets, fixing them up, creating really great communities. And you had asked me about how my portfolio shifted a few questions ago. Well, we're buying older assets and transitioning them, making them a lot newer. Now we're buying newer assets that if you want to keep them for your legacy, they're, 2018, 2010 builds in 20 or 30 years, they're still going to be relatively new. So understanding that's fine. When you're getting into it, you're going to buy older assets. But as you start leveling up and getting better at the business, you're not only going to get going from smaller assets to bigger assets, you're going to be going from older assets to newer assets.
Okay. So has personal development and life coaching influenced your success in business and investing?
It's influenced not only my business in success, it's my parenting success as well. We interviewed a gentleman named Eduardo Briseño. He was what would you say? A woman named Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. He was a test subject for Carol Dweck. She wrote the book called Mindset. Phenomenal, easy to read book. And it's so intuitive. It's so easy to understand, but most of us don't apply it. She talked about mindsets in there where you have a fixed mindset and you have a growth mindset. And in the book, she talks about the mindset when somebody's fixed, they sort of, know it all. They don't really want to learn. As they were young, they were always told they were smart, they were great. But when they got into college and in the real world, they just weren't. And they tend to quit. Whereas the growth mindset was like, you know what? I'm not born with these skills. I'm not born a genius. I have to learn these things. And it's okay if I make mistakes. I always use the classic example of Michael Jordan. The guy wins 3 championships. He decides to go play baseball. Everyone thinks he's a failure in baseball. He hit 230 in the major leagues. That's a monumental accomplishment. That's growth mindset. Continuing to grow, continuing to be uncomfortable, trying new things. So for me, that was like, wow, that guy can do that. Then guess what? He quit, left. He had his fill, went back to the NBA and won 3 more championships. To me, that is the epitome of growth mindset. The epitome of fixed mindset is someone like a John McEnroe, who still was phenomenal, but he cried like a bitch all the time. He was either the weather, it was either the sawdust, it was either sick, it was either his opponent. It was always someone else's fault. It was never his fault. And I think if you can look at that in our lives, some areas of our lives, we're in a more fixed mindset, and some of our lives, we're in a more of a growth mindset. And for me, business early on in the restaurant, I was in a fixed mindset. It's everyone else's fault. This is the only way you can do it. I have to hide in the kitchen. I don't know how to grow the business. Whereas in the growth mindset with the real estate, how do I go from 0 to 500 units in 5 years? There's no other example or explanation other than adopting the growth mindset. I'm going to make mistakes. I wasn't born knowing this. I've got to learn this. I've got to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to figure it out. Problems become opportunities. That's what the growth mindset looks like. Whereas the fixed mindset just focuses on problems and doesn't look for the opportunities.
Love it. Love it. As I mentioned earlier, in your bio, you've written about happy money and baby money soldiers. Can you explain those concepts and how they relate to building wealth?
I'd love to hit the baby money soldiers real quick because I think your audience would appreciate it. Think of a dollar. That's a baby money soldier. You are the general of your financial battlefield. You're responsible for every single dollar that comes into your life, whether you wanted to realize it or you don't. Now, how you deploy those dollars will make you understand if you become wealthy or not. Money is a game. If you're trying to play football with a tennis racket, you're not going to do really well. You have to understand the rules of the game. Now, money comes into your life. The goal is to have those baby money soldiers procreate and create more baby money soldiers. There's a lot of ways to deploy your baby money soldiers onto the battlefield. Sometimes you don't deploy them. You reserve them, put them into whole life, put them into savings to fight another day. Sometimes you do deploy them. You buy a property, then you all of a sudden take that property over and you buy another property, and then you refinance that property, and all of a sudden money starts coming in, cash flow starts coming in. Now, unfortunately, what most people do is they spend or kill their baby money soldiers prematurely. Now, we have operating expenses. Obviously, we need to operate our lives. 30% of our money goes to our mortgage and our living expenses. But then you look at the luxuries. You look at the cars, you look at the jewelry, you look at the vacations. I'm not here to judge. We need to actually enjoy our lives. But if you're killing those baby money soldiers prematurely and not allowing them to procreate, what happens? You won't be able to grow your baby money soldiers. And what most people do with the poor mentality, poor person's mentality, the fixed mindset, they shift too many of their baby money soldiers to expenses, luxuries, and operating expenses. They don't put enough out on the battlefield. They don't let them grow. It takes a couple of years. Warren Buffett, I think, at the age of 65, 81 billion out of his $85 billion in net worth came after the age of 65. So he had a long time in the making of 3 or 4 billion. Then the baby money soldiers just exploded because they were able to procreate. So if you can take a look from that perspective, understand that every dollar comes into your life, what do you do with it? And then you couple that along with happy money, happy family, happy legacy. I was interviewed by a gentleman named Ken Honda. He's the financial guru in Japan. He wrote the book, Happy Money. He told me in his Japanese accent, Gino, you need to write happy money, happy family, happy properties. I'm not writing another real estate book, Ken. And then I'm like, I want to do one on family, legacy, and money. And his idea of happy money is wonderful. I love it. It's money that comes into your life through optimism, through energy, through joy. I can tell you what unhappy money is. Once again, being stuck at the restaurant, washing dishes, having to go to work to pay the bills. And a lot of us have that. And that's unhappy money. My whole idea was to move from pain, which is unhappy money, to pleasure, which for me was podcasting, investing in real estate. And all of a sudden, if you can enjoy the happy money, you're going to start creating more baby money soldiers, more happy money that you can ultimately start reinvesting. And happy money is not the concept that money is going to make you happier. Money just gives you more choices. It gives you more optionality. Money is a result. That's all money is. Money is an inanimate tool, right? Success, I think, to me, comes from within. And if you can really attract happy money and you can do what you're supposed to do, what your sole purpose is, then you'll be creating happy money. That, to me, is what the concept of happy money is.
I love that. Yeah. Happy money, options. And that's what we all should strive for. Having more options, optionality in life, living, and you name it. My whole thing is time freedom it's time freedom, financial freedom. And there's another one that's escaping me right now. But those things are the things that I look for in my life, where I can make choices on what I want, how I want to do it, and whatever time that I want, where I can just go away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, and not have to worry about, I got to run back to the job, or I got to run here, or I got to run there, So yeah, I definitely, Happy Money. I'm definitely going to get that book because I think I would really love that. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, Gino, now, how do you balance being a husband and father of 6 while running a multifamily empire and hosting 3 podcasts?
It's not easy, but if you look at it in life, anything that's really worth it, it isn't easy. I've had to make decisions and choices. Do I go out and hang out with my friends every weekend, watch football games? Do I go out and play around the golf on the weekends? There's certain things that I've had to say no to. I've got 6 children. My children need my time. They need my focus. So I've had to say no to a lot of things. And that's what we talk about with that values-based decision making, knowing what your values are. If I heard you correctly, you like to have free time. You like to have financial freedom. Those are things that are important. Well, when you have those kinds of goals, those are lofty goals. You have to figure out that you have to say no to a lot of things to be able to say yes to those things. And it's really hard. If you're the type of person that doesn't like to let anybody down, you're going to be saying yes to a lot of things. So I've had to say no to a lot of things. And then obviously for me, having an amazing partner, having an amazing team has allowed me to be able to continue to grow. Having an amazing spouse. I mean, my wife is tremendous. She's incredible. She's helped me out in so many different ventures within the real estate, within the podcast, within growing the business, within social media. Leaning on people has really helped me to be able to scale that. And then ultimately, like I said, once again, it's based on my values. I know that my kids are really important. I know that my kids, everything I do and I say, recording it this subconsciously. So once I know that, I need to really focus on, being there for them. And unfortunately, some days you can't do it, and some days you can do a little bit more. There's no such thing as balancing in life. Sometimes in some of the seasons, you're going to be out of whack. Don't beat yourself up. That's okay. But what I'd also say is when I hear a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners say, I'm doing it for the kids. Did you ever ask the kids if that's what they want? And you'd be amazed and shocked at some of the answers you get. You may be surprised. So the next time you talk to your kids, ask your kids, hey, do you want dad to be working 18 hours a day to build this multifamily empire for you? Right? It's all about happy money, happy family, and happy legacy. Multifamily. That's a great question. Tough question. So when I started, if I had to give you one piece of advice, please learn the business. Don't skip over that part. Don't just be the person that Gino was, where I'm looking for a deal. Learn what a deal is for your personal example. And then I'll go back to also the goals. Understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this amazing vehicle of multifamily. Just go to barbaro360.com. That's BARBARO360.com. That's my website. You can check out the podcasts. You can download a free copy of Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy. It's on the website. We've got a lot of articles on there as well. For me, it's really just trying to find that community and trying to find people that you resonate with. If you're trying to create happy money, if you're trying to create a happy family, and we didn't touch on the legacy component, but the legacy component's important because it's not only just leaving money to your kids, right, and to the next generation, it's also leaving the values. I value education, so I've created an education platform so my grandkids can learn all about personal development, because the patterns that I've created, all of a sudden my children adopt those patterns, and then my grandchildren will adopt those patterns. So I want to create healthy patterns for my kids so my grandkids will be able to adopt those as well.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.